We've got our first fight of the preseason and 5 big takeaways from the Rams-Raiders joint practice session that you need to know. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramily, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your two-time Super Bowl champion Los Angeles Rams, free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, be sure to subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know what are your big takeaways so far from the Rams this preseason. My name is Doug McCain. My friends call me D-Mac. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, the Lakers for SI, the Dodgers for Dodgers Nation, now the Rams for Locked On. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre-half and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entered his 8th season covering the team, the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis Rogers. On today's show, we have our first fight of the preseason. You had Max Crosby versus Cam Akers. We're going to break that down in a little bit. In our second segment, what is going on with Joe Noteboom? His status is a little unknown at the moment, but we begin with our big takeaways from the Rams joint practice session with the Raiders. Trav, you ready to get into my man?
Here's how you know we're close to football season. I did not one, but 2 separate radio interviews in Las Vegas this week, getting ready for the Rams and the Raiders on Saturday afternoon. So we are getting close. Can't wait.
The People's Champ is in big demand. I love that. So, yeah, absolutely. Feels like we're getting close. It feels like we're in between second and third base, close to rounding third, going home for that start of the season. But a lot of interesting little notes to get into here from the joint practice session with the Raiders. And the first one we're going to begin with is it all aboard the Tutu train? Because Tutu Atwell had himself a day. Matthew Stafford said he had a really nice day, made some big plays. You can see in the clips of the Rams post on their social media that utilized his speed to beat his man down the sideline. Another one showed him making a grab on a quick route where he stayed in bounds and turned it into a chunk play. Now, my big takeaway here is differences, right? Not a one-trick pony. You're seeing vertical routes. You're seeing him run some routes over the middle, some crossers. So I like what I'm seeing. I like what I'm hearing so far when it comes to Tutu Atwell.
Yeah, look, it's great. He looks good. Like you mentioned, that when you see the clips, it looks good. When you hear the players talk about him, it sounds good. When you hear Sean McVay talk about him, he sounds bullish on what Tutu might bring to this team. These are all the things that were said about Allen Robinson last year, too. That Allen Robinson killed it in the joint practices, that when they went to Cincinnati, that they had to call off the drill because Allen Robinson was embarrassing the Cincinnati Bengals. And this, it just, no one's going to be able to stop him down near the goal line and everything. Okay, fine. How'd that work out? I've seen Tutu Atwell play football 2 years in a row. It does not look good. Now, I'm not saying it can't be good this year. I'm hopeful that it's going to be good. I'm hopeful that he has become more than just a run past the safety guy and hope to catch some, 50-yard bombs. But I'm going to need to see it against NFL players in a regular game with the scheme when they're trying to stop it. I'm hopeful that it comes around. They need a third wide receiver. That is something that you and I have been talking about a lot since they made their draft and started training camp. But I am sorry, I'm not a Tutu guy. I'm going to need to see it in a real situation before I'm fully on board.
That's fair. You got to see it in a game, right? You got to see him produce at the NFL level during a regular season game. But I do think at the very least, it is trending in the right direction. We're not hearing the opposite. That's when I'd be really concerned. I'm a Tutu truther just because I need something from that pick. I need him to provide something this year. But hey, we'll see what happens. Tutu fast, Tutu furious. We'll see if this is the year. But it's a make or break season for him 100%. Now, our next big takeaway, though, and this is another good one, Matthew Stafford absolutely shredded the Raiders secondary. He had his way with their DBs, especially on the outside. Basically every single report that was in attendance mentioned Stafford picking apart the Raiders defense. Now, I think that he's going to have a big year. I think that he's definitely trending in the right direction. He looks healthy. He looks like the arm is not on a pitch count, which I love to see. He's working with the receivers other than Cooper Kupp that he'll be working with during the season. So I'm feeling good about that.
Yeah, me too. This is kind of the opposite of the Tutu. I've seen him play NFL football, and it looks great. When he's healthy, he's really good. When he's healthy, he might be as good as anybody else, right? And I'm not saying he's Patrick Mahomes or anything like that. Don't get it twisted. But what I'm saying is that when he's healthy and he can make throws that very few guys in this league can make, if he can mix in all of his weapons, and that's the wide receiver group, Tyler Higbee, Cam Akers, whoever it may be, when he has a full complement, when that offensive line is functioning at a decent level, he's going to score. He's going to move the ball. He's going to put the ball in the end zone. And like you said, he's able to make the throws that we haven't seen him make last year. He's able to make some throws that, maybe he couldn't even make his first year at the Rams when they won the Super Bowl, because he himself has said this is as healthy as he's been in a few years. I'm excited to see him, because if he's good, he might be able to cover up a lot of the other issues that team has offensively, and he might even have to cover some issues defensively by scoring a ton of points.
Absolutely. Revenge season Stafford is going to be electric. 2021, a 102.9 passer rating, 41 touchdowns. I like what you mentioned there as far as when he's on, he's an elite arm that doesn't take a back seat to anyone as far as pure arm talent. I think he's going to have a big year. He's going to bounce back, and he really is going to be the most important part of this Rams team, because if he has success and they score points, they're going to have a chance to win a good chunk of games here. Now, I will say, though, when it comes to quarterbacks, Stetson Bennett, a lot of the momentum that he built, didn't have the best day against the Raiders. He threw an interception on a pass that was deflected, had some missed throws there, but still, I think, a work in progress. I think it was a good time for him to kind of continue to figure things out against this Raiders secondary.
Like we mentioned yesterday, WIP, right? You just said it, work in progress. This is going to be something. This is what happens to young players. This is what happens especially to young quarterbacks. 2 steps forward, 1 step back, right? This is what's going to happen with him. I wouldn't be surprised if on Saturday night, when they're actually playing the game, if we see some really good stuff from him, along with some stuff that makes you go, oh, right, he's brand new to the NFL. I'm excited. I think that he has a chance to be an NFL football player. I think that this is part of the process of becoming a quarterback in this league. You're going to realize that, okay, that doesn't work. I can't do that. What may have worked in college against some guys does not work in the NFL against these guys. And that's part of it, right? That's why teams are sometimes reluctant to play these young quarterbacks, is they don't know what they don't know. You can tell them, but until they go out there and have to do it in a game with somebody trying to hit them, with somebody trying to cover them, you have to learn the hard way. And maybe that was yesterday for Stetson Bennett. Maybe it'll be that way for him on Saturday against the Raiders or next Saturday against the Broncos, but he'll get it. He seems like he's a pretty resilient guy. I'm still optimistic.
Progress is not linear for young players, for young quarterbacks, for rookies, and I think that he'll need to take some steps back before he takes full steps forward, but I still like where he's at. I like the direction of him. And then also another positive sign for Tre Tomlinson. I mean, Tre Tomlinson, he looked solid against DaVante Adames. We pushed him out of bounds before he completed a catch on the sideline, and he did kind of get him back on a deep pass later, but right there on the outside, he was being tested during the 11-on-11s, and he held his zone. I love that. I think that Tre Tomlinson, he's got that main character energy. I think that he's building on that momentum from the first preseason game, and I think that he's trending towards having a starting job for this team.
I wouldn't be surprised either. I'm a big fan. I think that he's going to be a really good player for them. And you've said it a few times, D-Mac. I'm sure our everydayers know this. If he were 2 inches taller, he's probably a first or a second round draft pick. He's that good of a player. He's just a little bit undersized, which at that position is always something that makes you go, okay, let's see what it is. But if you can hang with DaVante Adames before you even really know what you're doing, I'm down, right? I'm excited to see. Look, DBs give up big plays. DBs give up big plays to great players. DaVante Adames is a great player. It's no shame in having him get behind you occasionally. That's fine. That's going to happen. He's not scared of going up against the best. He's not scared of trying to make a big play. And when you try to make plays, sometimes you give up a play here and there. But Tre Tomlinson, I'm excited to see more of him on Saturday. I think he's got a bright future with this team. And look, this could be a season where we're looking for silver linings. This could be a season where you're looking to see if you found some starters moving forward. And this may be one of those guys that if you fast forward a year from now, we're talking about Avila, we're talking about Puka Nacua, and we're talking about Tre Tomlinson, where they found some guys that are going to be part of this team for a while.
He absolutely has that dog in him, too. I love it. The fact that after Adams caught a deep pass on him, the very next play, he had a pass breakup. So he bounced back. He's not afraid to shove him out of bounds. You see a lot of young players show their respect, especially to the better players in the league. Tomlinson said, let's go. Let's strap up and let's get down. So love that attitude from him, the aggressiveness, the feistiness. I think he's going to bring that fire to this defense. So very excited about the potential of Tre Tomlinson. But the offensive line did not have a good day at the joint practice session. Joe Noteboom, there's some issues with him. We're going to talk about that next here on Locked On Rams.
You do not have to choose between better hair growth and your health. Nutrafol provides whole body health approaches for men that promotes healthier hair. No drugs, no compromises, just better hair. Nutrafol is the #1 dermatologist recommended hair growth supplement, clinically shown to improve your hair growth, visible thickness, and visible scalp coverage. Nutrafol's hair growth supplements use physician-formulated, natural, science-backed ingredients. Their drug-free patented technology provides consistent, reliable results, without compromising your sexual health. So take the first step to visibly thicker, healthier hair. For a limited time, Nutrafol is offering listeners $10 off your first month subscription and a free shipping when you go to Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. Find out why over 4,000 healthcare professionals recommend Nutrafol for healthier hair. Nutrafol.com/men. That's spelled Nutrafol.com/men and enter the promo code LOCKEDONNFL. That's Nutrafol.com/men. Promo code LOCKEDONNFL.
And we are off running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. And we want to send a special shout out to our everyday listeners. We appreciate you watching every episode, listening to every episode. And you should join the Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free, and you won't miss a thing about your Los Angeles Rams. But here, Travis, in our second segment, the offensive line did not have a great day. And Max Crosby was in the backfield pretty much all day long. And that was really kind of the story. He sort of had his way. And I think that's kind of one of the big takeaways. Logan Reaver of The Athletic, he tweeted, the Raiders D-line is obliterating the Rams O-line in one-on-ones. It looked like, based on the clips that I saw, they were just straight bulldozing in their reps. You saw even Rob Havenstein in the rep versus Crosby on the one-on-ones. He made that look very, very easy. I will say, too, in Rob's defense, you're not going to see that much space in a real game as far as those reps go. But, yeah, definitely as a whole was not a great day for the O-line.
This is the question on this team, right? The reason that last year went so haywire, there were a lot of them, but at #1 was the play of the offensive line, the health of the offensive line, the depth of the offensive line, the quality of the offensive line. This is the part that's going to determine whether the Rams win 4 or 5 games or whether the Rams might win 7 or 8 or 9 or 10 games. If the offensive line is capable, and it doesn't have to be the greatest offensive line in the history of the league. You don't need to have all 5 guys play all 17 games, but it needs to be good enough. Yesterday was not. This needs to be improved. There's still time to get it improved. There's still some players that you can shuffle in and out, but this is the backbone of this team. Matthew Stafford, as good as he is, if he doesn't have time, it doesn't matter. As good as Cooper Kupp is, if Matthew Stafford can't find him because he's running for his life, it doesn't matter. As good as Cam Akers looked over the last few weeks of last season, if the offensive line can't create holes and create space, it doesn't matter. This is the #1 thing to look at as we get closer to the regular season, is how those 5 guys up front are playing. And yesterday was not a good day for them.
Could not agree more. And I will say, though, at the very least, Max Crosby is an elite pass rusher. Yep. It's not like he was some some random guy getting back to. But I do like this. Stafford said that Crosby, when he was in the backfield a few times, whenever he would get close to him, he would just yell "sack" in Stafford's face. So I don't know what that was about. I thought that was pretty interesting. So at least a little lighthearted about it. But I think the biggest takeaway from yesterday, I have to say, was Sean McVay's comments about Joe Noteboom. So Joe Noteboom, his stock continues to go down. I think his chance of winning the job as the Rams left tackle or even right guard are dwindling by the day. McVay said that Noteboom is dealing with an undisclosed injury that kept him out of team drills and the joint practices versus the Raiders. He said he's not going to practice the rest of the week, but the plan is he'll be back for the team's joint practice sessions with the Broncos next week. McVay said he's dealing with a little something right now, and so he won't be practicing the rest of the week. I don't have any more information than that right now, but he wasn't part of the team activities today. So not good news to note from Joe Noteboom.
They're going to need him. I understand that he has been underwhelming at times, but here's why. And I'll go back to what we talked about with Tutu Atwell off the top of the show. I've seen Joe Noteboom play real NFL games and play really well. It's not like it's not in there. I've seen him fill in for Andrew Whitworth at times and kept a Super Bowl winning team on track while Whitworth was getting healthy. He can play. He's not playing well right now. And undisclosed injury always makes you go, all right, what exactly does that mean? But if he does have something that's preventing him from physically participating, in a weird way, that's actually good news, right? That if he's got something that just needs to heal, that just needs to get right, and we can get him back, that's good news because you're going to need him. He's a swing guy. He can play 3 different positions on your offensive line. He can play left tackle. He can play left guard. He can play right guard. You can move him around, and it allows you to play some other guys and add some offensive line depth. If he's unplayable or unusable or has just fallen off so dramatically that you can't put him out there, that's a problem for the Rams. They're going to need him. He needs to get healthy. He needs to get right, and he needs to play better.
Yeah, I like that you bring that up. The fact that he has shown that he has, at the very least, been a competent offensive line at one point in his career. For me, when it comes to young players, when it comes to players that haven't really fully established themselves at this point yet, I'm looking for glimpses of greatness. But for him, we've seen signs of solid. I think that's at least something. But I will say, look, McVay also said he was pleased with Noteboom's offseason and training camp. Like I said, he hopes he'll be back sooner than later. But I think, 1, McVay's not forced to give any information on any of these players. I think, 2, he also said he didn't want to see anyone on the team, quote, waste our emotional energy on stuff we can't control. I mean, what does that necessarily mean in that situation? I think that maybe they had a conversation with Noteboom and it looked like he was going to be the odd man out as far as along the offensive line. We know that the other guard spot at the right guard spot, he probably is not going to make that as well. And he's someone that's definitely a very expensive depth piece. So other big takeaway here is this a flare? Is this a flare about a possible trade? Because if a team wanted to trade for Noteboom, they could get him theoretically at a very low cost. The Rams could get some salary cap relief, around $1.5 million, unless they take on or pay some salary, and they get a draft pick in the later round. So you wonder if that's in the cards because, like I said, a little bit of a body language expert from years of watching sports, he didn't look too thrilled there on the sideline the first preseason game and really throughout camp.
I think you could be onto something. Look. If they move him, they move him. If he's displeased and he does not like the role that maybe it's being presented to him, then you got to make a decision that's best for your football team, not necessarily the decision that's best for the player that may be displeased. But like I said a second ago, they need him. Like I don't know if Tremaine Ankrum can play at the level that Joe Noteboom can. I don't know if whoever you put in there at right guard, whether it's Coleman Shelton or anybody else, can play better than Joe Noteboom can when he's playing at his best. Look, I'll defer to Sean McVay and his expertise and his staff's expertise, but I've seen him play NFL football at a relatively good level. I know it's in there. I don't know if it's gone. I don't know if it's between his ears. I don't know what it is, but if they move on from him, that's bad news for the Rams. I mean, you never know what's coming back necessarily the other way, but this is a player that I still have hopes for. Not that he's going to turn into an all-pro left tackle, but somebody that can be a part of a competent offensive line. I was optimistic, and this certainly is a step in the wrong direction.
Yeah, I think if you look at Noteboom right now, you probably say to yourself, look, if this guy can provide some depth, that's great. But he's also got dealt with injuries throughout his career. Now, I think they're probably a little gun shy after what happened last season with the injuries. I mean, when you consider the injuries they had last year, to trade some depth along the offensive line, maybe they don't want to go that route. And the Rams, they can always cut them in the offseason. That would create $5 million in cap savings and $50 million in dead money. So there are some options that really wouldn't hurt them too much after this year. But I also think maybe you want to rip the Band-Aid off and look to say, okay, let's see, we have an A.J. Jackson as our starting left tackle. If he doesn't look like a long-term solution, then maybe we get a guy in the draft, the guy from Aluf Fashanu from Penn State, or Joe Alt from Notre Dame, one of these left tackles maybe for the future. So I think it's a really important year to develop A.J. Jackson, see what you have in him, and I think that could be a possible route as well.
I think you're right. I look, hopefully the Rams surprise everybody and their talent level is better, and the draft picks that they've made overperform maybe their expectations, and we're talking playoffs all season long. That would be an ideal situation. But if the experts are right and if the predictions are close and this is a 5, 6, 7 win team, you need to find some things. And you're right that if Lark Jackson is the guy that you find, and you find a starting offensive lineman, like we talked about with Tre Tomlinson, like you talked about with Puka Nacua, Byron Young, like if you can find some guys that can play for you on a regular basis, this season could be a success. Maybe not a success the way that a couple of years ago was, where you win a Super Bowl, but a success in, okay, instead of thinking I got 3 building blocks, I got 7 or 8 or 9. That could be a success, and that could be where you can start to evaluate these guys.
Exactly, and you build with homegrown talent, right? I think that's really the way you have sustainable winning. But if you look at this line as a whole, you got Jackson, Avila, you've got Brian Allen or Shelton, Coleman Shelton there at the center spot, and then Ankrum or Shelton at the right guard. We know Rob Havenstein is be holding it down there at the right tackle. So as far as the ceiling goes with the offensive line, I'm not sure it's that great, but I think the floor is kind of high as far as if those guys can all stay healthy. But
that's it, right? That's what they need. It's not that you have to have a perfect offensive line. It's that the floor needs to be a C, right? As long as the bottom part of this is league average, that's fine. And maybe even slightly less than league average. You just can't be 30 or 31st or 32nd. If you're somewhere between 16 and 20, that might be good enough to win some games.
Yeah, they hit on Jackson, Avila. To me, this is a successful year for the offensive line, because you know that Havenstein's already had a really nice career, and you can figure out the center spot, even if Avila slides over the center spot later in his Rams career. So that, to me, is the number 1 and 2 things I'm looking for this season. You do have long-term solutions at the left tackle and that guard spot there. But, yeah, coming up in our next segment, we got to talk about the fight, because it's inevitable. You're going to get it every single year. We'll see where they're with their helmets swung by Aaron Donald. No, but there was a fight at Rams camp. That's coming up next on Locked On Rams. And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday, free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Now, Travis, here in our third segment, we knew it was going to happen. We got a fight, the first fight of the preseason. And Cam Akers, basically how it all happened. Akers lowered his head into Max Crosby, who didn't like that. Swings were thrown, and they both got the boot from practice. Cam Akers had some tweets after that we'll get into. But, yeah, just what's your read on that? I mean, is it something, nothing, everything, or just boys will be boys at NFL training camp?
Something, or something less than nothing. Is that an option? We were talking on my radio show, Travis and Sliwa, yesterday. I said, so are they going to fight today or are they going to fight tomorrow? Right? It's inevitable that when you have joint practices, guys are going to fight. The coaches like it when guys fight. Now, you don't want it to go to helmet swinging the way it did a year ago, because that becomes a whole nother thing that you got to address and whatnot. But this is something so far less than nothing. I don't know what that is. Negative something. I don't have the vocabulary to articulate what that is. But I look, Cam Akers showed me a little something, that he's willing to fight a guy like Max Crosby. That takes a certain sort of personality to want to go in there and do that. But this was inevitable. It happened. I wouldn't be surprised if there was another dust up or two today. We're at that point. Camp's almost over. Guys are ready to play real football. They're ready to hit some people, and this stuff happens.
Exactly. I mean, it always happens. It's inevitable. I do find it interesting. It does happen on the day where Aaron Donald is not in the mix. I think that was pretty telling a little bit. But, yeah, I mean, you look at the play itself. Crosby chased down Akers on the run. He tried to punch the ball loose. The play was basically dead. So Akers, he took offense to that. He responded the way he did. Like you said, I mean, the fact that Cam Akers isn't afraid of someone like a Max Crosby, one of the bigger dudes, looks like a true Raider, looks like he could be like a UFC fighter, something like that. I think that is something that you can take away saying, okay, this is a dog. He ain't afraid, right? He'll go at Crosby. I find it interesting, the post-fight stuff, because really also it took place, the skirmish took place 90 minutes into camp, so 90 minutes into the practice session. So at least they got the full practice in essentially before it went down. But after, Crosby said, I was doing what I was doing. He didn't like that, so he got what he got. And then Cam Akers, he quote tweeted that saying, somebody asked him what it was I got. Anybody with eyes saw what happened. So what's your read on that? I mean, who do you think won the battle there?
Well, I like that Akers went at him again, right? I like it. I like that Crosby's like, he got what he got. That's just a funny line. And I like Akers coming back and somebody asked him exactly what it is that I got. Like, he doesn't feel he got the wrong end of it. He doesn't feel like he didn't show up when it was time to show up. So I'll be honest. I like Cam Akers' response to all this. I like that he's not scared. I like that. Look, part of the problem with Cam Akers last year was you never quite knew his level of commitment. You never quite knew how invested he was in this. I think that was part of his preparation or whatever, that Sean McVay was never exactly sure where he was in the grand scheme of things. He's at least present. He's at least, emotional and motivated and ready to go. I like it. As long as nobody gets hurt in this stuff, as long as nobody, breaks their hand on a helmet or twists an ankle in a pile up, it's fine. It's not a big deal. It's kind of funny.
Exactly. As long as no one gets hurt, these guys are modern day gladiators. They're going through the grind of preseason, of training camp. This is inevitable. And these guys are all fierce competitors. I didn't know that Cam Akers gained all that weight in the offseason just to try to fight Crosby. I thought it was just because he wanted to be a better running back. I'd rather see him fight to be a really good running back. But also him running to Twitter, having those comments, almost feels a little bit like Friday in Smokey versus Debo, when Smokey says, I got mind control over Debo. When he says shut up, I be quiet. But when he leave, I be talking again. It almost feels a little bit like that.
I got nothing. That's perfect.
I wouldn't want to mess with Crosby, right?
No, look, you just see Max Crosby, you cross to the other side of the street, you say, excuse me, sir, and you keep moving. But I'm glad we got guys on our team that are like, no, man, tell me what it is that I got. And he went in there. I'm excited. I'm excited to see what happens on Saturday. I don't think Max Crosby will play. I'm almost certain that Cam Akers is not going to play. But we got a little something in the air. I think it's exciting.
Yeah, forget football today. Let's get Donald and Crosby in the octagon and let's just settle this. Okay, to me, that would be more entertaining than any type of Jake Paul fight, any of that stuff, right? That's what the people want. That's what we need.
Unless it's going to be a grizzly bear, I'm taking Aaron Donald in Aaron Donald versus blank. I want Aaron Donald action every single time. And even the grizzly bear might get plus odds.
Exactly. And he doesn't need that helmet, too. I hate the fans like, he just grabbed the face mask. No, look, Aaron Donald's a beast, but it's going to be great to see him out there. But that's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And as always, Travis Rogers, the people's champ. You can follow him on Twitter at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house is Locked On Rams house?